Hi there, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Louise, and welcome to Toddlers, Teens and Inbetweens.
So today we're going to be talking about the topic of anxiety.
And as a parent, I know the thought of our children suffering from anxiety is absolutely terrifying. It's the last thing we want for our kids, and that's why we're discussing this topic today.
So I'm sure you're keen to find out what anxiety really looks like from a child's perspective and how we can help them. And also we'll be looking at how anxiety affects us as parents, people like you and me.
We'll be asking, how can we practically help our children when they feel anxious? And as parents, how do we deal with our own anxiety without projecting that onto our children?
Well, today, Louise and I are joined by two of our amazing children, Max and Olivia, and their friend Nick is with us also. And so between us, we hope to make sense of what can sometimes be a complicated topic that's never easy to talk about. Hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. Before we get into the convo, why don't you all introduce yourself, tell everyone how old you are, and perhaps a little bit about what you're up to.
I'm Max, I'm 18 years old, and I've just finished school, and I'm about to go on a gap year to Australia. So
Very
Wow.
nice to go for a gap year.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, Olivia.
I'm Olivia, I'm 21, and I'm a nanny.
Brilliant. And you've had lots of practice because you've got lots of siblings
Yeah,
to
a
work
lot.
with.
she's basically nannied me my whole life.
Yeah, I still have to nanny him.
I'm the guinea pig.
So true.
Nick.
Yes, I'm Nick. I'm 18 and I have been training with tennis because I'm trying to be a tennis player professionally.
Professional tennis
Yes.
player.
Wow,
Yes,
that's
that's
so
the
good.
goal. That's the goal.
That's a big deal. How long have you been playing tennis?
Like a long time. A long time. Yeah, since I was a little boy.
As far back as
Whenever
you
that
can
was,
remember.
you know what I mean?
Were
A long time ago.
you ever a little boy though, Nick? Because you're so tall.
Yeah, I was actually. Yes. So.
Hey guys, we want to talk about the topic of anxiety, and it's something that it seems to be in the news. It seems to be on. We're hearing about it on social media. We're reading a lot of articles about it. I wonder what comes to mind when I say the word anxiety to you. What comes to mind?
For me, stress, worry, and pressure are the three words that come to me. I think the school I go to and the area we live in, there's a lot of pressure parents to get the good exam results, and I'm sure that's a lot of places, but I think especially where I am in the school I'm at, it's very results focused. So I think a lot of my friends have suffered with anxiety because of the pressure to get the results and do the best they possibly can and better than that. You know?
Yeah, we'll come on to that. So
Yeah.
we'll love to hear some stories about how you've encountered it yourself.
So that's
as well.
what comes to mind with me, yeah.
Nick, what about you? When I talk about anxiety, what comes to your mind?
Definitely pressure. I think definitely that's the main one. I feel as though I'm not where I should be in tennis, and it can feel, like a lot of pressure, so.
And that can lead to anxiety.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, pressure is probably the main thing.
Right.
For me. Yeah.
Yeah, Olivia.
For me, yeah, similar, and I think it's very common amongst teenagers. It's very, probably due to school, friendships, home.
It's quite a normal thing really these days, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm sure it was around, and that pressure was certainly around when we were younger, all them many years ago.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's just gone to another level, isn't it?
I think coming into that as well would be the wider use of social media.
Definitely.
And the pressures that surround that as well.
Right. It's a whole different
Exactly.
thing to encounter, isn't it?
It's a
and to deal
virtual
with.
world, where there's pressure to be a certain person behind a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go on,
I
Nick.
remember, Louise, you had you preached about comparing a little bit, comparing with others, and that can bring a lot of insecurities and anxiety.
That's right.
And that's
So
just
true.
on another level altogether now, isn't it? Because we never had social media, right?
That's right, yeah.
Never had social media. How many of you would say you've got a lot of friends who've suffered from stress and anxiety? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I definitely would say that I've had a lot of friends who have suffered with it, and it can come. And the thing is that with anxiety, it's not a one size fits all. I think a lot of my friends have suffered in different ways. And for some people, they get anxious in certain situations, and some people it's different situations. And sometimes it's events, sometimes it's big groups, sometimes it's small groups.
Right.
Sometimes it's eating at a restaurant, sometimes it's being in the classroom, sometimes it's giving a presentation. Like, it can come in so many different forms for different
That's
people,
right,
and that's
yeah.
what I've learned with helping my friends is it's not a quick fix solution for each person.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what works for one person might not work for the
Exactly.
next. Right.
And we're trying to better understand, I guess, today in this conversation of how can parents help their children who are going through some kind of anxiety or stress. Have any of you experienced any levels of stress, anxiety, where you say where you felt under extreme pressure and it was affecting your emotions?
Yeah, when I was at school, I suffered really bad with anxiety. And I think we moved to a new area, so it was a new environment for me, and it was just a lot of pressure of having to make friends, having to be in a new school, have to catch up on the work that I'd missed. And it can just get very overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think, Olivia, because you were, you're quite a shy person naturally, so just the anxiety of actually moving to a new school and not knowing anybody, that started it off. That was probably the trigger, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but then compounded with the other elements that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And Nick, you talked about the pressure of being, you just said you want to be a professional tennis player. Can you talk us through how the pressure felt, how that pressure cooker situation made you feel?
Yeah. With that, I tend to get in my head quite a bit, and it usually comes from those voices in your head like you should be here, you should do this, and dealing with that. Yeah, and I definitely feel like I should be further, and that can bring a lot of stress to me, and I feel like I need to work harder, and there's a lot of stress. So.
And is that pressure coming from outside, or you
No,
said
it's
it's
me.
in your head? So
yeah,
it's you.
I
putting
tend
that
to-
pressure on yourself.
Definitely, because my parents are very encouraging and
Yes.
supportive. So it's definitely within me.
Right.
And understand. So.
Right.
What about you, Max? Have you ever had issues with stress and anxiety?
I don't think I would never say that I've experienced anxiety or had anxiety in the truest form of it, but I've definitely had moments when I feel anxious, and I think with me it would be, because I'm the type that gets involved in a lot of things, so I think it was in my sixth form recently when I was really involved at school and I had a lot going on, and I was a house captain, which was like a high up prefect, and I was taking a lot of the weight of responsibility there, and then at church I was also doing a lot as well, and it did feel at one point that I got quite overwhelmed, and I feel like that might have been an inkling of anxiety. So for me it was just taking on a lot of things at once and trying to keep up, but I wouldn't say that I've experienced it in its truest form.
I think it's really helpful as well to remember that moments of feeling overwhelmed and moments of feeling stressed, maybe because you're starting a new school or because you've got maybe a tennis match coming up, that those feelings are normal.
Yeah.
And I think these days, because anxiety is so talked about, that we can actually get to the point where every little bit of pressure, we think, oh my gosh, my child's got anxiety, I need to take them to the doctors. Where really we have that inbuilt in us because it's natural. And we've got to realise that will bring some stress, and it's learning how to, but it's when it goes to another level that we have to really address it, I believe. I think we have to navigate that and realise that not every bit of stress or fear is not right.
And we have found that tricky, haven't we, as parents? And I'm sure you can speak for your parents as well, Nick. When we want you guys to be happy.
Right.
Every parent wants their child to be happy, stress-free, carefree. But when you go through teenage years, it does change. And I know you can be stressed at any age as a kid, but when you've got a whole new world ahead of you. So we found it difficult sometimes to know what to say and what to do. What are some of the things you think parents should be looking for in their children?
Yeah, when it's maybe that next level of
I
anxiety.
think being very emotional, unusual.
But aren't all teenagers emotional?
No. I think it's unusually emotional about, often when you are emotional, what you're being emotional about isn't really the thing you're being emotional about. I might be crying because Mum said to me, why haven't you put your clothes away?
Right.
But really, I'm not crying because of that. I'm crying because maybe I'm overwhelmed with something else, or something else is happening at school.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It's
sometimes,
digging a bit deeper.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, we do, teenagers tend to hide our emotions. And I feel like if your, teenage son or daughter is being very distant and, just being there, listening and just really looking out for, any signs of anxiety. Just, keep an eye on them.
I think a key thing to look out for is when you know your kid, you know who they are, you know what they're like. And I think when you start to notice things out of the ordinary,
Right.
obviously people change, and when you're a teenager, that's time for when your personality might shift a bit. But when you know you're a teenager and you have a relationship with them, you notice when something's out of the ordinary. You know when they're, they might be an emotional teenager, but you know when it's out of the ordinary emotional. Or, they might be stressy, but you know when it's out of the ordinary stressy. So I think looking out for those little warning signs, and also not jumping to the first warning sign as a conclusion. Someone might just be having a bad day.
Right.
And for you then to
kids
jump...
have bad days, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
For you then to jump on them and say, you have anxiety, that might even cause more stress.
Yeah.
So
That's
I think, seek
right.
wise guidance from other people as well, Ask other parents, have your kids experienced this? Maybe ask someone who's had anxiety if you hadn't had it. Because it's hard to understand if you haven't suffered with it.
Yeah, it really it
And I think
really
as
is.
teenagers, you're growing up, like Max was saying, earlier, you're trying to find yourself and your identity. And so you're really learning how to live your life with lots of things going on. And, when you are a kid and up to probably, 12, 13, your parents do everything for you. But now it's on you as a teenager to do those things. And so you're learning for the first time how to keep those plates spinning.
Right.
Which can be overwhelming. But as you learn and do it more, it becomes easier.
Yeah, it's as your capacity grows, isn't
Yeah.
it, and things like that. And I think it's important to talk and try and look for those opportunities just to talk, because I think once when I talked to you, Olivia, and I explained that we're almost like a tube, and the tube gets blocked, and lots of things build up, and when we release that, it means that it almost gets flushed through and gets released. But if we don't, the tube starts to crack and break and everything bursts out somewhere. So I think talking definitely helps.
Yeah.
Sometimes just talking about your feelings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're scared about something, or they're either trying something new and they might mess it up. Because they're nervous they'll do something wrong.
For me, if I worry, it's thinking about the results that could happen, when in reality, that's probably not even going to happen.
It's quite natural. I'll give Olivia a 10, give Max 5, Zach an 8, my dad a 3, my mum a 5, and Will a 5, and I'll be like a 4, 5. About 5.
Maybe a 6 or 7.
No.
When me and Jackson were both learning swimming at the same time, and he was quite worried about it because he didn't really want to do it, but I reassured him, I'm going to be there with you, it's all going to be fine, and if anything goes wrong, I'll be there. So we did it, and now we go swimming regularly, before regulations. But that's a really fun thing, and I think if we hadn't had each other to overcome that, then it wouldn't be as fun now.
Trying to stay calm, because worry's not going to help anything.
Talk to someone about it, definitely, because talking really gets it out there and takes it off your mind.
I would say, think of happy thoughts, don't think of worrying thoughts.
And also just hanging out with friends, doing something you love, can really stop the worry.
Yeah.
I think you can be worried about something, but when you're doing something you really enjoy, you can take your mind off it, and that could be something happy.
Sometimes I was worried about a test or something, and then my parents would make me happy. and I'd feel better. When we were going to the Fosters again, on the way, because it's quite a long car journey, I was thinking, I don't want the dog to bite me, I don't want the dog to bite me. But then I was also happy to see them.
The most worrying thing for me is probably tests, like in exams. But at the same time, I just try and take my mind off it, revise as much as I can, and then hang out with my friends and have a good time so that I'm not just stressing about it when I know I've done all I can do.
Sometimes it can be reasonable to worry. So sometimes it can be kind of good because there's a reason. I think it's good because then you kind of feel good after, like if you think about something you're worried, but then you actually like pass a driving test or something like that, you actually quite feel like good inside of you. Sometimes it can be bad because you don't need to when it's like a little thing.
Worry sometimes needs to be there because it's like a human sense. Like if you're worried about something, you're going to be cautious about it. Like if you're worried to go swimming in shark-infested water, you're going to be more careful about what you do in like when there's sharks around. You're not going to just mess around with it. So it's like a human instinct kind of, but it's bad when you over worry and you let the worry take over.
What about the age of social media, right? Because we never had social media. We used to write letters and send cards.
Ancient.
Back in the old days.
You need to get back to
in the
that. You
day.
so need to get back.
But do you guys all have social media? I know you have a limited amount of social media, don't you, Olivia?
I just have Instagram.
Just Instagram. What do you?
I don't have anything.
You don't have
actually.
anything?
No.
Why is that, Nick?
I'm very aware of what it can do to you, and
Wow.
I don't feel as though I need that in my life.
So you don't feel the pressure of having to have social media?
Yeah, I don't feel the pressure of that.
Wow.
That's great.
And have you seen the benefit of not having social media?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And you see people that do have it and are so stressed and constantly on it and checking. And,
Yeah, all the time.
and I just avoided it completely.
Yeah.
Wow, wise man. I guess you're just as wise as Nick is, Max, and you don't use social media either.
Nah, I'm on it, and I think because I'm a very social person, I like to know what's going on in everyone's lives. I like to show everyone what's going on in my life, you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think what I found for me as I've got older is it's healthy to take time off it. I think recently I realized I was just scrolling and I was getting sick of it, and I just took a week off it, and I just deleted it. I said to a couple of my friends, I was like, I'm taking a week off, and then when I went back on, I just found a whole new kind of rhythm of it where it wasn't number one in my life anymore. It wasn't like my instinct was to just start scrolling. So I think it's healthy to take time off when you feel overwhelmed, or maybe as parents, maybe suggest that to your kids, especially when they're younger, because as soon as you get it, you think, wow, this is the best thing ever. But I'm getting to 18 now, and I'm like, okay, it's not the best thing ever. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it can be a positive thing, social media, but
Yes.
I just think there's such a bad side to it, and to be exposed to it at that age, it can have a really big impact on you.
It can definitely be detrimental to your mental health.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, you get way more information than we probably would have been shielded from if we didn't have that social media. I can read the news and anything that's going on in the world, I know it straight away, which might cause me more anxiety than
Almost too much information.
Yeah,
isn't it?
because
But also, sorry to interrupt,
No,
but on the flip side of that, you can be desensitized to it.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
know, exactly, you see it and just think, oh, that's another thing.
And then
that
once you
happened.
do get it, when you're an adult, you don't know how to navigate it properly. So I think it could be helpful, you know, if parents are thinking, when do I allow my kids social media to help with their mental health? If you let them when they're younger and then you moderate it and you're very involved in it, you check it, then you can teach them how to use it well and how to use it in a healthy way. Because I think it can be positive. It can keep them connected. It can help them to find new interests, learn things. So, you know, I think it's all in moderation and all in, you know, guidance from parents.
We have found it difficult, haven't we, Louise? When we've seen you guys with any kind of stress or anxiety, it's difficult, isn't it?
It's very, very
because
difficult.
again, I'm dad, I'm the fixer. That's me. I want to fix things, and then you get a little bit stressed because they're stressed.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
advice would you give us as your parents, or would you give parents listening? But also, what advice would you give to your friends who are suffering with anxiety?
Maybe let's go with the parents first.
Sorry. Let's go with the parents first. What advice would you give us as parents?
I think I would say that you have to be quite level-headed about it, and you can't freak out in front of the child, teenager.
Right.
You really need to...
Because we just stoked the fire of anxiety.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I can't believe that you're feeling like this. Yeah.
One, it's normal in loads of teenagers. So if your teenager's feeling that way, it's not like, oh my gosh, what have I done wrong?
Right.
You know, every kid goes through it at some point. But also, for that person with anxiety, it's hard for them to get a perspective of the situation. They think they're really overwhelmed, where you can see it from a different point of view. So it's making sure that you don't get stressed about it yourself, but that you're able to see it from a different perspective and help
Have
them.
some
in that.
objectivity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good. Yeah.
I think parents at one time were actually teenagers, although it may be a long time ago.
Long time
ago. So you did experience these anxieties that your child is going through, although they may be slightly different because of the times are very different, but the pressures are the same. And I think the feelings are the same, and I think you can help them through that because there's a part that you do understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think definitely as parents, don't always think that they want to talk to you, and place people around them who they might feel more comfortable talking to, because maybe they feel the pressure from you, and maybe they don't feel comfortable talking to you about it. Maybe it's nothing personal, but they just want to talk to someone outside of the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
So be wise and place people around them who they can trust, who they feel like they can talk to, so that they've got another outlet. And it's, to be honest, so you guys aren't getting stressed out with all of the problems.
Yeah. We've got to deal with that because it makes us feel a bit insecure, doesn't it, as parents?
It does. And I think one thing, you know, when Olivia was going through that, when she was very anxious, when she started her new school, you know, it's painful for you. You don't want it. So it's almost too painful to face it that it's happening. You just want her to be fine.
Yeah.
So sometimes you feel very emotionally involved in the situation. So it was helpful during that season. What we did, wasn't it? We had a couple of people who she would go and talk to,
And that
who
was
would
helpful,
give
right?
her some.
Yeah, and
give her
I'd
some
go like once a
perspective.
week after school on a Friday. And that was like 7 years ago. And I still see those people now, not as often, maybe every couple of months. But, you know, just...
Because she wasn't as emotionally involved in the situation, so she could take a step back and help you a little bit more.
And just get me ready for the next week of going to school, you know? It's just good.
It's I think it's very important for us to say as well, because, you know, we're all from, you know, we're all Christians around this table. You're Christian parents. It's so easy for us as parents to say, okay, let's just pray about this. And whilst prayer is so important, we shouldn't neglect the common sense of finding someone for our children to speak to. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's very
And on that, I
important.
think as well, it is important that from a Christian perspective, it's way easier, I think, because you can point them to, you know, positive influences within the church, and it's so easy to get, you know, maybe a youth leader, maybe a youth pastor, or, you know, pastoral care helper in the church to kind of be that Christian influence and point them to a positive scripture, you know, that's going to help them, you know, and connect them with God as well, because I think it makes it way easier to deal with when you have that Christian influence.
Right.
Yeah.
And the conversation doesn't stop here. Join our Facebook community for more insight from parents and also live videos each week to answer any questions you may have. We're also on Instagram, so there are loads of ways for you to stay connected.
And of course, by going over to our website, you can access articles that we really hope will inspire you, educate you, and support you, as well as being able to find out about some really, really cool online training events. The second question I wanted to ask was, have you ever given your friends any advice who are struggling with anxiety? Because we know that too much anxiety can lead to severe issues with mental health, mental well-being. Have you discussed this with your friends at all?
Yeah, I definitely have, and I've had plenty of friends who have suffered with it, and having not suffered with it severely myself, I've had to actively go out and educate myself and learn, because it's so hard to understand if you're not in it. And I still don't fully understand, but you've got to learn to be patient, and I think the advice that I've given my friends is just, I've been there to listen. And I think a lot of, like you said, it's just a tube built up and it just needs to be let out. So sometimes it's best to just sit there and say, let's just talk about this.
Right.
And once they start opening up, it can just feel a lot better. You know, it's not cured, but once they've let out all their emotions, it's not bottled up anymore. So I think for me, it was just being a listener and just being there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a similar situation with it's mainly my brother. He, and within the family, we talk to each other quite a lot about anxieties and worries we may have, and just knowing that we are there for each other to talk about that.
Yeah.
And knowing that. So,
So hey, it'd be great if I could just get some advice for parents. And we've touched on this, but you know, if you could give parents listening one bit of advice. I mean, you can give us it direct, right?
Yeah.
But we're speaking to everyone who's watching here. There's obviously parents watching who are concerned about anxiety and stress levels of their children. If you could give them one bit of advice, what would you all say?
I think the best thing that parents can do for their teenagers who are suffering with anxiety is to learn about it, because parents might not always know everything. And I think that's an assumption that they often make.
Yes.
I know how to fix this. I know exactly what you're feeling.
Right.
I think finding people around them, maybe their friends who have had anxiety, or, you know, even professionals who can help them. Seek professional help, you know, watch some videos, learn before you give advice, because you might not be giving them the best advice.
Right. There's lots of resources.
So
these days.
admit you don't know everything, I think, is the best thing.
Yeah.
Any ideas, Nick?
I think I think everyone has anxieties, right? Especially parents. I think you guys have
Absolutely
so much anxieties raising a child, and I think just tapping into that, and because we do understand it. There is an element that we've experienced, I think just talking to them, listening, doing the best you can.
Talking, listening.
Yeah,
talking, listening.
Listening, and just being there for them so that they can let that out when they want to.
Great.
Well, listen, really appreciate your openness and honesty on this issue. It's not an easy issue to talk about, but I know this conversation is going to help so many parents.
Right.
Listening, being open, learning about it, all great things. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode.
And don't forget, of course, you can find out more on our social media, on our website. There's loads of great blogs and information about live training events near you.
We really hope that we're going to see you next week, where Andrew and I will be discussing the topic of sharenting. Have you heard that word before? Well, if not, tune in next week. You really don't want to miss it.
We'll see you then.
See you soon.